The promotion ceremony turned into a public trial when the slap echoed across 200 guests and my mother leaned close to whisper, "Still weak." They thought the army would fix me back into their obedient daughter. I just stayed silent, activated my recording app, and invited them onto their own battlefield. When the giant screen replayed the truth right there on stage, the entire hall understood "the army can't fix you" was the curse they'd tied around their own necks, and I cut it right there on the spot. My name is Riley Hart, and at 32, I've earned every stripe on my uniform through sweat, discipline, and countless nights sleeping on military cots instead of the comfort my parents claimed I'd thrown away. As a military police captain stationed near Fort Mason, just outside Colorado Springs, I've built a life they never understood, one where respect is earned, not demanded through blood ties. The morning of my promotion ceremony started like any deployment briefing: precise, controlled, methodical. I checked my dress blues 3 times, ensuring every medal sat perfectly aligned. My bronze star caught the light from my apartment window, earned in Kandahar, not inherited from family legacy. Outside my day job protecting military assets, I consulted for Northline Systems on cybersecurity contracts, building a financial cushion my family assumed belonged to them by default. Greg and Elaine Porter, my parents, had mastered the art of emotional taxation long before I enlisted. Every achievement became their victory parade, every paycheck their emergency fund. My younger brother Kyle, unemployed at 29, drowning in gambling debts and bad decisions, remained their golden child. "Family helps family," Mom would say, while Kyle's hand remained permanently extended and mine perpetually reaching for my wallet. The Officers' Club had been transformed for the ceremony. 200 guests filled the hall: my unit, commanding officers, Northline executives who'd flown in specially, even some Afghan interpreters I'd helped immigrate. My parents arrived 90 minutes early, inserting themselves into conversations with my CO about their sacrifice in giving me to the Army. That's when I noticed the first red flag. Mom cornered Lieutenant Morrison from event planning, insisting they needed special recognition during my speech. "We're the reason she's here," I heard her tell him. "We deserve our moment." Morrison, bless him, looked to me for guidance. I shook my head subtly. This was my promotion, not their theater, but Elaine Porter had never met a boundary she wouldn't cross. 20 minutes before the ceremony, I intercepted an email on my phone she'd contacted the venue directly, requesting a duplicate key to my apartment for emergency access while Riley deploys. The building manager, confused since I wasn't scheduled for deployment, forwarded it to me immediately. My fingers moved to my smartwatch. Activating the recording function I'd installed after Kyle's last visit left me missing 2 laptops and my grandmother's jewelry. The apartment's internal cameras went live on my phone app. Every door code was changed remotely within 30 seconds. If they wanted to play games with my security, I'd show them what a military police officer did with intelligence gathering. "Riley, sweetheart." Mom's voice cut through the pre-ceremony chatter. She wore the designer dress I'd foolishly paid for last Christmas, approaching with Dad trailing behind like he always did. "We've arranged something special for your big day, a family tribute. Won't that be wonderful? The ceremony program is set. Mom, this is an official military function, not a family reunion." Her smile tightened that familiar expression before the guilt began. "After everything we've done for you, the sacrifices we've made—" "What sacrifices?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Dad stepped forward then, chest puffing. "Watch your tone. Riley, your mother deserves respect." Respect. They threw that word around like a weapon while systematically dismantling every boundary I tried to build. The same parents who'd emptied my college fund for Kyle's 3rd failed business venture, who'd told extended family I was too rigid when I refused to co-sign his apartment lease with my military clearance on the line. The ceremony bell rang. 200 people took their seats. My commanding officer, Colonel Jackson, stood ready at the podium, and somewhere in that crowd, my parents plotted their next move, unaware that every word, every gesture, was now being documented. The medal ceremony itself should have been sacred, my moment of professional triumph. Instead, I watched my parents whisper furiously in the front row they'd commandeered, displacing my actual invited guests. Mom kept gesturing toward the microphone, and I knew with sick certainty that this wasn't over. They thought the army had made me weak because I'd learned to follow orders. What they didn't understand was that it had taught me strategy, patience, and most importantly, how to gather intelligence before striking back. The war was coming. They'd fired the first shot with that key request, but I'd learned in Afghanistan that the best defense included overwhelming documentation. Every email would be saved, every recording backed up in triple, every witness statement notarized, because medals don't fix broken families, but sometimes they give you the backbone to finally break free. The stage lights blazed down like desert sun, transforming the officers' club into something between a courtroom and a theater. Colonel Jackson's voice boomed through the sound system as he read my commendation words about duty, honor, tactical excellence in hostile territories. 200 faces watched as I stood at attention, the weight of my dress blues somehow lighter than the invisible pressure from the front row. Captain Riley Hart exemplifies the highest standards of military service. Jackson continued. Her leadership in Operation Steel Guardian saved 17 lives and secured critical intelligence assets. That's when I saw Mom rise from her seat. She moved with the determined grace of someone who'd never been told no in a room full of people trained to follow protocol. Dad followed, naturally. They climbed the 3 steps to the stage while Jackson was mid-sentence, Mom's heels clicking like countdown timers against the polished wood. "Excuse me," Mom addressed Jackson directly, that sugar-sweet voice she used before destroying someone. "As Riley's parents, we've prepared something special, a family tribute to our daughter's journey." Jackson looked to me, confused. The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how military ceremonies worked, but Elaine Porter had never cared about anyone else's protocols. "Mom," I said quietly, maintaining military bearing despite the acid climbing my throat, "please return to your seats. This isn't appropriate." "Appropriate." Her voice pitched higher, performing for the crowd now. "What's inappropriate is a daughter who forgets where she came from, who refuses to acknowledge her family's sacrifices." The room held its breath. My fellow officers stood frozen, uncertain whether to intervene. This was beyond irregular. It was unprecedented. "Mrs. Porter," Jackson tried diplomatically, "perhaps after the formal ceremony." "No." Mom snatched the microphone from his hand with shocking audacity. "Everyone needs to hear how we saved Riley from herself. How we pushed her toward the military to fix her. Issues. Issues." The word hung in the air like cordite after an explosion. "Return to your seat." My command voice emerged, the one that had ordered soldiers through firefights. "Now." That's when she struck. The slap cracked across the silent hall like a rifle shot. My left cheek erupted in stinging heat as gasps rippled through the audience. But it was what came next that truly weaponized the moment Mom leaned in close. Close enough that her breath hit my burning cheek and whispered with venomous clarity, "Still weak." The words slithered directly into my ear, but my watch caught every syllable. The stage cameras installed for streaming ceremonies to deployed units captured the impact from 3 angles. The backstage monitor, still live, reflected everything in real time. My hand didn't move to my face. I didn't step back. Years of combat training kept me rooted, assessing threats and calculating responses. Around us, the room exploded into chaos. "How dare you speak to your mother that way?" Dad shouted, playing to the crowd. "After everything we've done, the money we spent. She was nothing before we fixed her." Fixed. There was that word again. 2 military police officers from my own unit, Sergeants Davis and Williams, moved toward the stage. They looked torn between protocol and the surreal situation of their commanding officer being assaulted at her own promotion ceremony. "Stand down," I told them calmly, my voice carrying despite not having a microphone. Document everything. Mom still held the mic, launching into a practiced narrative. She was troubled, self-destructive. We sacrificed everything to get her help. The military was our last hope to instill discipline, to make her normal. Ma'am, you need to leave the stage. Colonel Jackson had recovered his authority, signaling security. But Mom wasn't finished. She owes us everything. That apartment she refuses to share with her brother, the money she hoards while Kyle suffers, the cruel way she's cut us off from her success. Mrs. Porter. I took 3 measured steps forward, close enough that only the front rows could hear. You just assaulted an officer of the United States Army at an official military function, in front of 200 witnesses, on camera. Her face paled slightly, but the performance continued. Don't be dramatic. Riley, I'm your mother. I was disciplining. You were assaulting. I touched my watch, ensuring the recording light remained steady. And now you're trespassing on military property after being asked to leave by a superior officer. The MPs moved closer, hands on their duty belts. The audience watched in stunned silence as my parents' mask finally, publicly, shattered. Dad grabbed Mom's arm. Elaine, we should... No. She yanked away, tears starting the crocodile kind she'd perfected over decades. She's our daughter. We have rights. Tell them. Riley, tell them about the family you're abandoning. I turned to Colonel Jackson. Sir, I request this ceremony be concluded. My guests deserve better than this spectacle. He nodded, jaw tight with controlled anger. Sergeants, please escort Mr. and Mrs. Porter from the premises. As Davis and Williams approached, Mom made one last desperate play. She threw the microphone down the crash, reverberating through the speakers, and pointed at me with a shaking finger. You'll regret this. Riley, family is everything. The Army can't fix you. Nothing can fix what's broken inside you. The words were meant to wound, to trigger old insecurities. Instead, they felt like evidence being gift-wrapped for my lawyers. I watched my parents being escorted out, Dad muttering about lawsuits and Mom wailing about ungrateful children. The room remained frozen until the doors closed behind them. Then, slowly, deliberately, I turned back to face my colleagues, my commanding officers, my actual family of choice. The left side of my face throbbed. My dress blues remained perfect. My apologies for the disruption, I announced to the room. I'll be filing the appropriate reports immediately. And in that moment, I realized they were right about one thing. The Army couldn't fix me, because I had never been broken. The base medical facility photographed my face at 7:15 p.m., exactly 3 hours after impact. The nurse, a young specialist named Hernandez, documented the handprint-shaped welt with clinical precision while I held an evidence marker beside my cheek. For your records, Captain, she said quietly, understanding without explanation that this wasn't a typical injury report. By midnight, I sat in my apartment with 2 laptops open, building what I called the evidence fortress. The ceremony's CCTV footage officially requested through proper channels played on one screen. Mom's slap at timestamp 1823. The whispered still weak at 1823 and 4 seconds. On the second laptop, I compiled emails, texts, voicemails spanning 3 years of escalating boundary violations. Patricia Dawes, my civilian attorney, answered on the second ring despite the late hour. Riley, I heard. Lieutenant Morrison called me. Are you documenting everything? Every pixel, every decibel, every witness? Good. We'll need affidavits from at least 20 attendees. Can you get those? My phone had been buzzing nonstop with messages from colleagues. Already have 37 officers offering written statements. The next morning, I sat across from Captain Jerome Monroe, the JAG officer assigned to advise on the military implications. His office walls displayed the same oath we'd all taken to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I hadn't expected the domestic ones to share my DNA. "This is unprecedented," Monroe said, reviewing the footage for the third time. "Assaulting an officer during an official ceremony. Your parents could face federal charges. I don't want criminal prosecution. I want protection, a restraining order that has teeth." He nodded, understanding. "We can pursue both civilian protective orders and a military protective order. The MPO would bar them from all base facilities. Any military functions?" While we strategized, my phone erupted with notifications. Mom had posted on Facebook, heartbroken. "Our daughter has chosen the military over family. We tried to save her from herself at the ceremony, and she had us arrested praying for her soul." The comments were already piling up, extended family calling me ungrateful, family friends questioning what kind of daughter files charges against her parents. I screenshot everything, adding it to the digital fortress. Then came the escalation I'd predicted. Captain Hart, my Northline Systems project manager, David Kumar, called that afternoon. "I received a concerning email about you. Something about violent tendencies and mental instability. It's clearly malicious, but I wanted you to know. Forward it to me immediately. Please." The email was a masterpiece of defamation. Mom had written 3 pages of fabricated incidents, claiming I'd threatened them, stolen family heirlooms, exhibited dangerous military conditioning. She'd sent it to 12 Northline addresses she'd somehow obtained, probably from LinkedIn. Patricia Dawes shifted into overdrive. "This is tortious interference with business relations. Add defamation per se. She's attacking your professional capacity. We're looking at serious damages now." But Mom wasn't done. The next morning, a formal complaint arrived at Colonel Jackson's office. She'd accused me of abusing my military position to intimidate elderly parents. She wanted my security clearance reviewed, my promotion reversed, my fitness for duty evaluated. Jackson called me in personally. "Captain, I want you to know this is being treated as the malicious false report it clearly is. The video evidence alone." "Sir, I need to tell you something." I pulled up my phone, showing him the text Kyle had sent an hour ago. "Mom says if you give me the apartment keys, this all goes away." Jackson's face darkened. "Extortion. Captain Monroe needs to see this immediately." The evidence pile grew. Jenna Cole, Kyle's ex-girlfriend, reached out through Facebook with her own horror story. She provided a sworn affidavit detailing how Kyle had moved into her apartment uninvited, destroyed property when asked to leave, and how my parents had harassed her employer until she dropped the charges. "It's their pattern," Jenna wrote. "They target whoever has resources, claim family rights, then destroy anyone who refuses." My smartwatch had captured something even more damning: the full conversation from the ceremony's backstage area before the slap. Mom telling Dad, "If she doesn't acknowledge us properly, we'll make sure everyone knows what kind of daughter she really is." Conspiracy to commit defamation, premeditated assault, planned extortion, all recorded in crystal clarity. Patricia compiled our counteroffensive cease and desist letters, formal demands for retraction, and a civil suit for defamation, assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and interference with business relations. The dollar amount she calculated made my military salary look like pocket change. "They wanted to play the victim," Patricia said, arranging documents like ammunition. "Let's show them what actual legal warfare looks like." Captain Monroe added the military dimension formal trespass orders, notification to federal authorities about the attempted extortion of a military officer, and documentation connecting the false reports to Greg's IP address through digital forensics. "Your father used his home computer to send those anonymous complaints," Monroe confirmed. "IT traced it in 12 minutes. That's federal false statement charges if we want them." I sat in my secured apartment that night. Cameras recording. Doors locked with codes my family would never have. The opening salvo of their war had failed spectacularly. They'd thought public shame would break me. That family guilt would make me fold. They forgot I'd been trained to survive interrogation in Afghanistan. This was just paperwork in comparison. The call came at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, deliberately timed to catch me off guard. I let it ring 3 times, started my recording app, then answered with calculated calm. Riley, sweetheart. Mom's voice dripped honey over poison. We need to talk about this misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. Elaine. I used her first name deliberately, noting the sharp intake of breath it caused. I'm your mother. You can't just, this call is being recorded under single-party consent laws. Continue if you acknowledge this. A pause. Dad's muffled voice in the background. Then Mom. Harder now. Fine. Record your mother trying to save her family. Riley, if you give Kyle the apartment keys just temporarily, 3 months maximum, I'll retract everything. I'll tell your boss it was a misunderstanding. So, you admit to sending defamatory emails to my employer. I admit to being a concerned mother whose daughter has lost her way. Kyle needs stability. Riley, you have that spare bedroom just sitting empty while your brother suffers. The brother who stole from me, who destroyed Jenna Cole's apartment. Jenna is a lying witch who, Mom caught herself. Kyle made mistakes. Family forgives. Unless you want me to expand my concerns to every defense contractor in Colorado, I have a list. Riley. 43 companies that work with Fort Mason. I smiled in the darkness, knowing she couldn't see it. Please send that threat in writing. My attorneys will find it useful. The call ended with her shrieking about ungrateful daughters. By morning, the social media war had exploded. Mom's Facebook Live video, A Mother's Heartbreak, Military Stole My Daughter, had 800 shares. Extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly became experts on my moral failings. Cousin Linda posted childhood photos with captions about how sweet Riley became cold after joining the Army. Uncle Robert shared a think piece about military brainwashing destroying American families. Hi, I documented every post, comment, and share. Patricia Dawes converted each one into evidence of a coordinated harassment campaign. Then, Jenna Cole became my unexpected nuclear weapon. Riley, I have everything, she called that afternoon. Text messages from when I dated Kyle, your mom coaching him on how to guilt trip me, voice recordings of their threats, photos of my destroyed property, even a video of Kyle admitting your parents told him he deserved whatever he could take from girlfriends because of his struggles. Would you testify to this pattern of behavior? Already gave my lawyer permission to share everything with yours? Your family destroyed my credit, my reputation, my sense of safety. Yes, I'll testify. The digital forensics revealed more. Our IT specialist at Fort Mason, working with legal authorization, traced the anonymous complaints. Not just Dad's computer, they'd used public library terminals. Kyle's phone. Even a laptop at Mom's church. 37 false reports across 6 weeks, all demanding investigation into my fitness for military service. It's orchestrated defamation, Captain Monroe said, adding to our federal complaint. They're attempting to destroy your career through fraudulent means. Mom's next live stream was her mistake. Wine drunk at 3:45 p.m. She went live from her kitchen, not realizing Kyle was visible in the background going through what looked like mail that wasn't his. Riley thinks she's so smart with her lawyers, Mom slurred to her phone camera. But I know things. I know about her deployment, about what really happened in Kandahar. Maybe those investigators should hear about the soldier who didn't come home because of her decisions. She was referring to Specialist Tommy Chin, no relation despite the name. He died in an IED attack on a route I'd cleared 8 hours earlier. The investigation had completely exonerated me, even commended my route selection as optimal given available intelligence. But Mom had twisted it into ammunition. Within an hour, 17 veterans from my unit had seen the video. Their responses were swift and furious. Master Sergeant Williams posted his own video. I served with Captain Hart in Afghanistan. Any parent who'd use a soldier's death to blackmail their own daughter is beneath contempt. The military community rallied. Stolen valor by proxy began trending as veterans shared experiences of toxic families exploiting their service for manipulation. Mom had attacked something sacred, the Brotherhood of Combat Veterans, and they responded like the warriors they were. Patricia called an emergency strategy meeting. They're escalating beyond defamation into potential criminal threatening. The Kandahar comment could be construed as blackmail. Let them escalate, I said, pulling up my latest recording. Every word they speak is evidence. That evening, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. The image attached showed Kyle inside my apartment building's lobby, trying different keys in the mailboxes. The message read, "Thought you should know. Building security." I forwarded it immediately to both lawyers and the police detective handling our case. Kyle had just violated the temporary restraining order by entering my building. Mom's response to being confronted with this evidence was predictable and recorded. He's checking on his sister's well-being since she's clearly having a breakdown. Any good brother would do the same. Any good brother wouldn't need to break into mailboxes. Patricia responded via official legal correspondence. The stakes were rising. Mom's list of 43 defense contractors had become real. She'd actually started sending emails. But she'd made a critical error. She'd used the same template for each one, the same false allegations, the same demands that they investigate Riley's instability. Mass defamation, Patricia said, almost gleefully. Multiplied damages across 43 instances. We're talking 7 figures now. Riley. I watched the security footage of Kyle being escorted from my building by police, the restraining order violation adding another charge to our growing list. Mom's Facebook audience was beginning to turn too many veterans in the comments explaining what she'd really done. Too many people noticing the inconsistencies in her story. The war wasn't over. But for the first time in my life, I was winning. The Civic Hall blazed with elegant lighting for the Veterans Foundation's annual fundraiser, 300 guests, $30,000 already pledged before dinner, and my parents strategically positioned near the main stage despite having no legitimate invitation. They'd leaked their plans on Facebook, thinking they were clever. Time to tell the truth about our daughter. Mom had posted at 4:30 p.m., not realizing I had allies monitoring her every digital move. Patricia Dawes stood beside me at the entrance, her Chanel suit armor-plated with legal authority. Process server is in position. Security briefed. AV team ready with your materials. She handed me a slim remote. One button. Riley. When you're ready. The event coordinator, Marcus Webb, a former Air Force colonel who'd heard about the promotion ceremony incident, approached with controlled anger. Your parents pressured 3 board members to get in, claimed they wanted to reconcile publicly with their daughter. I'm sorry. Riley. If you want them removed, no. I smoothed my black evening dress. Medals miniaturized into elegant pins on my lapel. Let them perform. The stage is exactly where I want them. Captain Monroe, arrived in his dress blues, flanked by 2 JAG paralegals carrying briefcases. The federal prosecutor is watching via live stream, he murmured. Your parents' threats against military personnel upgraded this to DOJ interest. At 8:45 p.m., between the silent auction and keynote speech, Elaine Porter seized her moment. She'd clearly been drinking Dutch courage for her grand performance. She approached the podium while the MC was off stage, grabbed the microphone with practiced entitlement. Good evening, patriots and heroes, she began, voice trembling with manufactured emotion. I'm here as a Gold Star mother not because I lost my child in combat, but because the military stole her soul. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Several veterans stood immediately, recognizing the stolen valor of claiming Gold Star status. I remained seated, hand steady on the remote. My daughter, Captain Riley Hart, sits among you tonight, pretending to be honorable. Mom's voice grew stronger, feeding off attention. But I'm here to expose the truth. She abandoned her family. She let a fellow soldier die in Afghanistan through negligence. Tommy Morrison, just 22 years old. She got the name wrong. Tommy Chin had been 24. The fact she couldn't even honor him with accurate details while exploiting his death made my decision easier. She refuses to help her struggling brother while hoarding wealth. She had her own parents arrested for trying to hug her at a ceremony. I stood. 300 heads turned. Mrs. Porter, I said clearly, my voice carrying without amplification. You have 60 seconds to correct your statements before I present my evidence. Evidence! She laughed, shrill and sharp. Of what being a mother who loves too much. I raised the remote. 30 seconds. Dad joined her on stage, chest puffed with false bravado. You won't intimidate us with your military tactics. Riley. These people deserve the truth. 10 seconds. The truth is, you're broken. Sick. The Army couldn't fix you. Nothing can. I pressed the button. The massive LED screens flanking the stage, usually reserved for donor recognition, erupted to life. The first clip, Mom's slap at my promotion ceremony, the sound echoing through Civic Hall's superior acoustics. Her whispered, "Still weak," played 3 times, enhanced and clarified by audio forensics. The crowd's collective gasp was visceral. Next clip, the backstage conversation where Mom planned the disruption. If she doesn't acknowledge us properly, we'll make sure everyone knows what kind of daughter she really is. Then came Jenna Cole's sworn testimony, her face in shadow but voice clear. The Porter family systematically targets anyone with resources. They moved into my apartment uninvited, destroyed my property, then launched a harassment campaign when I sought legal protection. Email screenshots filled the screen, Mom's messages to defense contractors, each one time-stamped, each allegation highlighted, the forensic report showing Dad's IP address as the source of anonymous complaints to my command. But the killing blow was Mom's own drunk livestream, edited to highlight her threats. I know about her deployment. Maybe investigators should hear about the soldier who didn't come home. Master Sergeant Williams appeared on screen in full dress uniform. Specialist Tommy Chen died a hero. Captain Hart's route selection saved 17 other soldiers that day. Any parent who weaponizes a fallen soldier's memory for extortion dishonors everything we fight for. The screens went dark. Then, one final image Kyle on security footage, trying to break into my building's mailboxes. Timestamp clearly visible showing he violated the restraining order. The silence was absolute. Mrs. Porter, I said into that vacuum. Specialist Chen's name was Tommy Chen, not Morrison. He was 24, not 22. He died on March 15th, not because of my negligence, but because terrorists planted an IED on a route that had been clear 8 hours prior. His mother, his actual Gold Star mother, sent me a letter thanking me for trying to save him. A woman in uniform near the back called out, "I served with Chen and Hart. This woman is desecrating his memory." The process server materialized beside my parents like a ghost in a suit. Elaine and Greg Porter. He handed them thick envelopes as 3 uniformed police officers entered through the main doors. "You're being served with a cease and desist order, a formal restraining order, and notice of a civil suit for defamation, assault, battery, and tortious interference with business relations." Mom tried to run, actually tried to flee the stage in her heels, but an officer calmly intercepted. "Ma'am, you're also under arrest for violating an existing temporary restraining order by being within 500 feet of Captain Hart." "This is entrapment," Dad shouted as handcuffs clicked. "She set us up." Marcus Webb took the microphone. Voice Arctic. "Actually, you contacted our board members. You insisted on attending. You took that stage uninvited. Captain Hart simply allowed you enough rope." As they were escorted out, Mom sobbing, Dad threatening lawsuits, the room erupted in applause. Not for drama, but for justice. Veterans understood what they'd witnessed stolen valor met with decisive action. Patricia appeared at my elbow. The federal prosecutor just texted, based on the live stream evidence of blackmail using military deaths. They're opening a formal investigation. I nodded, watching the doors close behind my parents for what I hoped was the last time. The remote felt light in my hand, its single button having delivered 3 years of evidence in 4 minutes of devastating clarity. The war was almost over. The moment of detonation came as Mom stood at the podium, mascara already streaming, trying one last desperate manipulation. "My own daughter orchestrated this," she wailed to the crowd. "She brought you all here to witness her cruelty to her own mother." What kind of person? I raised my hand. The gesture was small, almost casual, but Marcus Webb understood. The lights dimmed to half, focusing a single spotlight on the stage where my parents stood frozen. Play! That single word triggered the final sequence. The LED screens illuminated once more, but this time with surgical precision. No edited clips, no highlights, just raw, uncut truth. First, the full promotion ceremony footage. Every second from the moment my parents climbed uninvited onto that stage. The audience watched Mom grab the microphone from Colonel Jackson's hand, watched her speak over his protests, watched her hand connect with my face with a crack that echoed through Civic Hall's speakers at full volume. Still weak, the whisper played again, but this time followed immediately by my response, calm, controlled, professional, even with a handprint reddening on my cheek. The screen split. On the left, the ceremony continued. On the right, a new video began surveillance footage from my apartment building's lobby, dated 2 days ago. Kyle jimmying the lock on the mailboxes while Mom stood watch by the door. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m., well past when legitimate visitors would be present. "That's not we were checking on." Mom's protest died as the audio kicked in. Her own voice captured by the lobby's security system. "Try the maintenance key I copied last year. Riley doesn't know I had it made when I visited for Christmas." The crowd's murmur turned hostile. Someone whispered, "They tried to break in." Next clip, Mom's complete drunk live stream from her kitchen. Not edited excerpts, but the full 23-minute rant where she detailed her plan to destroy Riley's military career if she doesn't give us what we deserve. The part where she laughed about using that dead soldier as leverage, where she called me a broken machine the Army created and promised her viewers she'd bring down the whole facade. But the masterstroke was the email evidence, displayed with forensic authentication headers proving their authenticity. 43 emails to defense contractors, each containing provable lies. The IP trace showing Dad's computer as the source of 37 false complaints to military channels. Kyle's text messages to me over 3 years, demanding money, threatening to tell everyone what kind of sister you really are if I didn't pay. Then came something I hadn't shown Patricia yet, audio from my car's dash cam, recorded when I'd given Mom a ride to her doctor's appointment 6 months ago. Her voice, clear and calculating. "Your father thinks we should just take you to court for elderly support, force you to pay us monthly. But I said no. I can get more by making her feel guilty. The military made her soft, all that talk about honor and integrity. She'll cave eventually. They always do when Mommy cries." The screens shifted to a grid of sworn affidavits, 17 of them. Former girlfriends of Kyle, old family friends, 2 of my cousins who'd been similarly targeted. Each statement detailed the pattern: financial exploitation, emotional manipulation, destruction of property when refused, followed by systematic defamation. Master Sergeant Williams appeared again, this time standing beside Tommy Chen's mother at what was clearly Arlington National Cemetery. "Mrs. Chen spoke directly to the camera. "Captain Hart tried to save my son. She carried him under fire for 200 meters before the medics could reach them. How dare anyone use my Tommy's sacrifice as a weapon against the officer who held him while he died." The final image was devastating in its simplicity, my military evaluation reports. 5 years of exceptional ratings, commendations for leadership under fire, integrity, and moral courage. Beside them, a single question in bold text. "Who do you believe?" The screens went dark. The silence that followed was complete, crystalline, the kind that precedes verdicts and executions. Mom stood at the podium, mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. Dad had gone pale, his blustering authority evaporated. Behind them, the police officers waited with professional patience. I stood, my dress catching the light as I moved toward the stage, not rushing, not angry, just inevitable. "Every word you spoke tonight was recorded," I said, my voice carrying without the microphone. "Every lie, every threat, every admission of conspiracy to commit fraud and extortion. The federal prosecutor has been watching via live stream. The FBI's white-collar crime division received copies of all documentation an hour ago. Riley, please! Mom reached out as if to grab me. I stepped back, maintaining distance. You said the Army couldn't fix me. You were right. It didn't fix me, it revealed me. Showed me what strength actually looks like. What family actually means. Captain Monroe stepped forward with the final document. Mrs. Porter, Mr. Porter, this is a formal notice that you've been designated as threats to military personnel and operations. You are hereby permanently banned from all military installations and functions. The process server added his own finale. The civil suit has been amended based on tonight's evidence. Damages are now sought at $2.3 million for defamation, conspiracy to commit extortion, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The handcuffs clicked with metallic finality. Mom's designer dress, the one I'd foolishly paid for, crumpled as she was turned around. Dad's chest-puffing bravado deflated into a broken wheeze. "How could you?" Mom gasped as the officers began moving them toward the exit. "We're your parents." "No," I said quietly, but the acoustics carried it to every corner. "Parents protect, parents support, parents love without price tags. You're just people who happened to share DNA with someone who grew beyond your pathology." As they were escorted past the crowd, not a single person met their eyes. 300 witnesses to their complete destruction. All recorded, all authenticated, all admissible. The doors closed behind them with a soft thud that somehow echoed louder than any slap. The backstage area of Civic Hall looked different without 300 watching eyes, just fluorescent lights, folding chairs, and the mechanical hum of the building's HVAC system. 10:17 p.m., according to my watch, though time felt suspended in the aftermath's vacuum. Patricia Dawes sat across from me at a plastic table. Documents spread like tarot cards revealing an expensive future. Assault and battery, criminal trespass, violation of restraining order, attempted extortion using interstate communications, that's just the criminal side. She tapped her Mont Blanc against a highlighted section. Civil damages are where they'll truly feel it. The police sergeant, a weathered woman named Detective Rivera, closed her notebook. "Your mother's asking for a lawyer. Your father's already trying to claim entrapment. Neither seems to understand that planning crimes on Facebook Live negates that defense." Through the wall, I could hear the fundraiser resuming laughter, applause, the clink of champagne flutes, life continuing while mine restructured itself at the molecular level. "The building management company called," Patricia continued, scrolling through her phone. "They're filing their own charges for the attempted mailbox break-in. Your apartment complex considers it a federal crime since mail tampering falls under Postal Service jurisdiction." Captain Monroe appeared in the doorway. "The DOJ prosecutor wants to meet Monday at 0900 hours. She mentioned potential RICO charges given the pattern of conspiracy between your parents and brother. RICO, racketeering charges. My family had become organized crime. I signed where Patricia indicated, initializing pages of testimony, evidence authentication, and prosecutorial cooperation agreements. Each signature felt like cutting another tether to a life I'd never actually lived, the one where family meant something sacred instead of transactional. "Your brother's been arrested," Detective Rivera announced, checking her phone. "Picked him up at your parents' house, trying to destroy evidence. He had a box of documents labeled Riley Leverage in his room." "Of course he did," I muttered, unsurprised that Kyle had created a filing system for extortion materials. Marcus Webb knocked and entered, carrying a banker's box. The venue's security footage, as requested, 3 different angles of tonight's events, plus audio from our new sound system. The quality's exceptional, we upgraded after that incident with the senator last year. Patricia's smile turned predatory. "Perfect. Juries love high-definition evidence." The financial summary Patricia produced next made my stomach clench, not from fear, but from the scope of my parents' attempted theft over the years. "Based on bank records subpoenaed this afternoon, your parents have taken approximately $400,000 from you over 8 years through various manipulations. The forensic accountant found transfers they convinced you to make for emergencies that never existed. $400,000. My entire adult life's savings, systematically drained by people who called it love. The apartment alone is worth $300,000 in equity, Patricia continued. If they'd succeeded in their plan to force Kyle's tenancy, establish residency, then claim elderly support needs, they could have taken it entirely. Through the paperwork, signing my name until it became automatic. I thought about the concept of family, how I'd watched my unit become brothers and sisters through shared purpose while my blood relatives plotted my financial destruction. How family had been weaponized into a battering ram against my boundaries. Detective Rivera's radio crackled. Your mother's bail hearing is set for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Given the federal implications, they're being held overnight. Good. Let them experience consequence in a holding cell. Fluorescent lights and cold benches replacing the comfort they'd tried to steal from me. There's more, Captain Monroe said quietly. The investigation into their military fraud, the false reports to your command, revealed they've done this before. Your Aunt Martha, the one who served in the Navy, they tried the same thing when she wouldn't co-sign Kyle's car loan. She never pressed charges, just cut contact. Another soldier silenced by family shame. Not me. Not anymore. Patricia gathered the signed documents, organizing them with military precision. The asset freeze goes into effect at midnight. Their accounts, the house, everything gets locked pending investigation. The IRS has also been notified about potential tax fraud related to the money they extracted from you. I stood, my dress still perfect despite the war waged in it. Send them the full invoice, every penny of legal fees, court costs, damaged reputation recovery, all of it. With interest, Patricia agreed, compounded daily. The walk to my car felt longer than any patrol route in Afghanistan. Each step carried me further from the gravitational pull of genetic obligation. My phone buzzed with messages, colleagues offering support, veterans expressing outrage, even Tommy Chin's squad leader saying he'd testify about my attempts to save his friend. At my apartment building, I handed the security chief my military ID and a court order. Complete lockdown on my unit, new access codes, biometric locks if possible. Bill everything to this law firm. I gave him Patricia's card. Already started. Captain, after seeing that footage of your brother, we're upgrading the entire building's security. Nobody wants that kind of trouble here. In my apartment, I stood before the mirror where this morning I'd adjusted my medals. The woman looking back had the same face, the same uniform hanging in the closet, the same bronze star on the shelf. But the weight she'd carried, that genetic debt, that obligatory guilt, was gone. My phone buzzed. Kyle, from a number I didn't recognize. This isn't over. I screenshot the message, forwarded it to Patricia and Detective Rivera, then blocked the number. Yes, it was over. The moment they'd chosen crime over kindness, extortion over empathy, it had ended. Tomorrow there would be federal meetings, bail hearings, and the mechanical grind of justice processing my parents like any other criminals. But tonight, in my secured apartment with its new locks and documented safety, I felt something I'd never experienced in 32 years of life, freedom from the family that had tried to fix what was never broken. The Civic Hall stood empty at 11:43 p.m. Its grand stage now just planks and shadows. I stood alone in the space where hours earlier, my parents had tried to destroy me in front of 300 witnesses. The podium remained, the LED screens dark, the microphone switched off. Evidence markers had been removed, statements taken, justice wheels grinding forward somewhere in the city's bureaucratic machinery, my reflection caught in the polished floor dress blues replaced by civilian clothes, but standing straighter than ever. The phone in my pocket stayed silent. No family emergencies, no guilt-laden texts, no financial SOS calls from Kyle. Just silence, magnificent and complete. I touched the spot on my cheek where Mom's hand had connected at my promotion ceremony. The physical mark had faded, but the recording lived forever in multiple evidence lockers, cloud servers, and federal databases. Her whispered, "Still weak," had become her confession, her conviction, her scarlet letter. The building's janitor, an older veteran named Marcus, pushed his cart past. He stopped, recognizing me. "Hell of a thing tonight, Captain. My daughter went through something similar. Family thinking military service means unlimited ATM access. What did she do? Cut him off. Been 5 years now. Best decision she ever made." He paused. "The uniform doesn't make us banks. It makes us warriors. Sometimes the battlefield's our own bloodline." He rolled on, leaving me with that truth. The battlefield was wherever threats emerged, foreign or domestic, even if domestic shared your DNA. I walked to the spot where Mom had stood, gripping the podium she'd commandeered for her final performance. The wood felt cold, indifferent to the drama it had supported. From my pocket, I pulled the one photo I'd kept of family Christmas from 15 years ago, before the demands, before the theft, before love became leverage. I set it on the podium and walked away. Let the janitor sweep it up with the rest of tonight's debris. Outside, the Colorado night air bit sharp and clean. My car waited where I'd parked it, but I wasn't ready to go home yet. Instead, I stood on the sidewalk, looking up at stars military service had taught me to navigate by. Polaris held steady, unchanging, reliable, everything family should have been. My phone finally buzzed. Not family, but Captain Monroe. Judge signed off on permanent restraining orders. 500-yard minimum distance. No contact through third parties. Your parents and brother are now legally strangers. Legally strangers. The law accomplishing what emotional growth couldn't complete: separation from toxicity wrapped in genetic gift paper. I thought about Tommy Chen's mother, how she'd thanked me for trying to save her son. That was family gratitude without invoice, connection without coercion. The unit that had stood behind me tonight, flooding prosecutors with witness statements, that was family. Marcus Webb ensuring my parents faced consequences, that was family. The poster beside Civic Hall's entrance caught my eye one last time. Honor, duty, integrity. The Army's values, but also life's blueprint for relationships worth keeping. My parents had violated all three, then wondered why the fortress of my boundaries held firm. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app. The new balance showed what Patricia had already recovered through emergency asset freeze: $60,000 of my money sitting in my parents' account, waiting for legal repatriation. The rest would come through civil suits. But this was a start. My money. My life. My choice. A text arrived from Jenna Cole. "Watched the live stream. You're my hero. Thank you for what I couldn't do." Then another, from Master Sergeant Williams. "Your 6 is covered. Captain, always." And another, from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Martha, your aunt, the one who served. Proud of you for doing what I couldn't." Welcome to freedom. The word echoed. Freedom. Not from service or duty or responsibility, those I chose gladly. Freedom from the lie that DNA demanded deference to destruction. Freedom from funding someone else's failures. Freedom from being anyone's fixing project. I climbed into my car, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, Civic Hall shrank, taking with it the last battlefield where my parents had any power. Ahead, my apartment waited secured, locked. Access list updated to 0 family members. The drive took 12 minutes. I counted each one, each mile adding distance between who they'd tried to make me and who I'd chosen to become. At my building, the new security pad required both keycard and biometric scan. The system confirmed, "Access granted, welcome home, Captain Hart." Home. A place they'd never enter again. Inside my apartment, I stood before the window overlooking the city. Somewhere out there, my parents sat in separate holding cells, their bail hearing 9 hours away. Kyle was processing his own arrest, his leverage box now evidence against him. The family that had demanded everything had lost it all. My fingers found my phone one last time, typing a message to the empty family group chat they'd created years ago for coordinated guilt trips. "The Army couldn't fix me. You're right. But here's what you never understood. I was never broken. I was just born into the wrong family. That error has been corrected. Access denied. Permanently. I hit send, then left the group, blocked all 3 numbers, deleted their contacts. The notification popped up immediately. Access list updated 0 family members. In the window's reflection, I saw myself clearly not weak, not broken, not needing fixing, just a soldier who'd finally won her longest war, the one that started at birth and ended tonight with handcuffs and federal charges. Mom had whispered, "Still weak," in my ear, but weakness would have been letting them stay. Weakness would have been funding their dysfunction forever. Weakness would have been choosing blood over boundaries. Strength. Strength was standing in an empty apartment at midnight, no family left in my contacts, and feeling nothing but peace. The army couldn't fix me. I'd fixed myself by cutting out the infection that claimed to be family. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought overseas, but in our own homes, against people who should have been our safe harbor. Stay strong, set boundaries, and remember, DNA doesn't entitle anyone to destroy you.